Hello everyone, IanXIlyana here, and I'm having a bit of a rough time because there is a post on Threads right now where a transgender person is holding up a sign during a protest saying, "I'm not a boy, I'm not a girl, where do I pee?" And this post was used by people to put down transgender people and non-binary people, my community. And you know me, I'm apolitical, but there's certain times when you just have to speak up. You have to speak up for people who are figuring things out, people who are being brave and proudly proclaiming who they are. And I think we forget that bathrooms are supposed to be for defecation and urination. Like, you go in, you do that, you wash your hands. Probably should wash your hands before, but people usually rush, so they forget to do that. And then you get the fuck out. And then somehow this became a political thing where it's people against you doing that, which doesn't make sense. And then they always bring up the whole, kids are affected by this. Your kids are getting shot in the face in America in schools, and you do nothing there. But you want to focus on whether or not it's a man or a woman peeing or shitting next to your kids. Okay. For that alone, I say transgender people just need to drink more water so that they have to do it now. Because, and I put this in my Threads post to someone who was rude to me, because they were saying, well, you know what, transgender people should just wear diapers instead of using a restroom like a regular adult. So because of that, I said, at the very least, when your kids come out after having to do their business next to a person who may or may not be transgender, they come out alive. Unlike your American education system, which has been murdering your children and you don't care. You pat yourself on the back saying, oh, I stopped my kid from knowing that there are options in this world, that there are different types of people in this world. But then you send them to American schools where crazy people are coming in and shooting your kid in the face. Remind me again how it is that you're considered a good, decent parent when you can't be bothered to either speak up or vote on issues that would affect the educational system to make sure that your kids come back to you alive. I don't expect people to make that point on camera. I don't expect people to make that point in the media, because it's common sense. You're focusing on whether or not that's a man or a woman next to you in a stall, instead of saying, yeah, but my kids spend all their time in this building away from me, away from even law enforcement, and they're being subjected to drugs, they're being subjected to pregnancy, they're being subjected to awful bullying, which could lead to suicidal tendencies, depression, anorexia, bulimia, drug use. But somehow transgender people are vilified, and we have nothing to do with that. Transgender people aren't getting your kids pregnant. Your schools are getting your kids pregnant. You are getting your kids pregnant. So when American parents have to look at their kid and say, you're 13 and you're pregnant, you're 15 and you're pregnant, whatever, don't think for a second that a transgender person had anything to do with that. It has always been you and your issues. So leave transgender people alone when they want to use the bathroom. And all these states that are making it difficult for transgender people to use the bathroom, this is when the transgender community should come together and say, look, we need to save our people. We need to have safe asylum in harbor cities and say, look, I'm fleeing from a transgender bathroom policy in my area. I need to move to your city. And then if your job doesn't have a transgender bathroom, if your transgender status is a point of contention for where you work, then why are you working there? Why would you work for a company that denies who you are and expects you to work all hours, follow all rules, follow everything? Hello, LeBron. Hello, Wiley. Hello, everyone. I didn't know a kid could get pregnant in school. Most parents don't. Most parents are so negligent that they don't even give the kids the talk. And then they're just shocked when the kids figure it out on their own. So what I'm talking about transgender rights are human rights. We have this idea in America that we can, number one, stop transgender people from living their lives, and then also that we can legislate whether or not you pee or shit next to another person. That doesn't make sense. What rights do they not have? They don't have the right to use the bathroom that they feel more comfortable with. Now, I'm a transgender person, but I also have PTSD from military sexual trauma. So no way in hell am I ever going to fucking like enter into a bathroom with a woman. I've done it in the past because I was on a campus where that was allowed, that was permissible. And for the most part, there was like barely anyone in there. And even so, there was so much space that you could say, I'm on this stall over here and you're on that stall at the other end. And you know, we don't talk to each other, we don't interact. We do our business, then we get the fuck out because we got better things to do. I mean, this was a university. And in a university, you have more important things to do. So you're not spending that much time there. You're spending what? Less than 5 to 10 minutes. So 5 to 10 minutes you may have to put up with a person of any gender or even the same gender. And then you go about your day. You go back to class, you go home, you do whatever. Okay, I'm gonna go into what you're saying there, Wiley, because thankfully you're a person in my chat. What rights to that? Because they're not that. If a dude goes into a girl's restroom, they should be punished. No, no. There is a different conversation when it's someone went into a restroom and was aggressive, or someone did something that was a crime in a restroom. You cannot criminalize whether or not you have to use the bathroom. It's a bodily function. Like, do you get that? Do you get that you do that as a bodily function? Because I've never heard of a transgender radical group just saying, okay, at that point, we'll just lock all the bathrooms then. And yes, girls need safe spaces, men need safe spaces, but it should be do what you have to do and then get the fuck out. We have those boundaries. No, you don't. You never had those boundaries for a reason. You have those boundaries because you didn't respect yourself. You didn't respect your community enough to teach men and women right from wrong. You didn't teach them that, you know what, boobies exist. You didn't teach them that. A lot of parents have dropped the ball when it comes to explaining what female anatomy is to boys. They don't explain it. They don't. They don't. They keep it taboo, and which is why men, at least in America, have been obsessed with tits. It's all they talk about. It's all they fucking do for commercials. Lingerie is all about accentuating the breast. And it's because you never sit down a young boy and say, those meat bags, those bulges of fat are there to feed a baby. They're not sexual objects. They are sensual. They are sensitive, but they're there to feed babies. They never have that conversation. And they never have that conversation of, you know what? You might actually have to be in close proximity to another person of a different gender. It doesn't mean that you're going to have sex with them. It's not an invitation to sex. It's not a reason to talk to them. It's nothing. When clothes are off, people are baffled. People are stupefied. You want to talk about magic spells? Take your clothes off in front of another person. They will shut the fuck up because they don't know how to handle it. Their brains cannot match up anything that is going on because they are never taught that the human body is a beautiful thing, that the human body is something that you have and other people have. I mean, I feel sorry for people who are traumatized. I mean, I'm traumatized. But on the other hand, I feel terrible that there isn't a sense of inclusiveness, that from the beginning that they didn't explain to people that you need to just break down these barriers, break down all barriers. Because this is why we have things like toxic masculinity. This is why we have, women who are not engaged enough in STEM education. Because they say, oh, well, being brainy and showing that I'm intelligent is just not what a lady does. If I ever want to get a boyfriend, if I want to get a husband, I gotta be, a dumb as brick girl and just, shove my tits in their face. And like, that's how I get a real man. These kind of stereotypes persist because you never have an opportunity to say, there are aspects of being a man that you might want to learn as a girl. You might want to learn some aspects of being a woman as a man. You might want to learn things like empathy. You might want to learn things like cooperation. All right, I'm going to go into some of the things that you're saying here because I don't want it to just be, what I have to say. Okay. We have, but they make wrong choices. Even if we haven't, there's another reason we have those boundaries. If you got XY, go to the dude. If you got XX, you go to the lady. It's not that simple. It's not that simple, and it's never been that simple. The whole idea that, number one, when you go to the bathroom, that's a private event. If you want a private event of going to the bathroom, use the one in your home. Use the one in your home. I'm going to have to go with just biology. Biology, because animals, for the most part, wolves, bears, otters, rabbits, they don't shit by themselves. They don't. Why? Because there's predators all around. because at any moment a hawk could come down and just snatch you up into the fucking sky. So no, they don't do that by themselves. Which is why, when my dog has to walk around and, I get pissed sometimes because she's like, I really need to sniff this spot. And I'm saying, you really need to sniff that spot for what? And the biology and psychology of it is she's saying, I need to make sure that this spot is a safe spot for dogs to do their business. Because if I don't smell that, then you know what? It's probably not a safe spot. But we as humans think we're above shitting communally, that we're above, saying, hey, will you go with me? And that it's such a taboo, if someone shits or pisses, that, oh, it's embarrassing. Oh, is it funny? Is it funny that a person has to do a bodily function that you normally do? No, I don't think so. I think that it's just a bodily function. And I think we have to get rid of these stupid taboos that have been holding us back. Because it holds us back not to be able to say, you know what? I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say it. That a male and a female locker room is just a locker room. How enlightened would you be if you were either a woman going into this, a woman going into a gender neutral locker room and say, you know what, I don't have to make comments. I use the facilities, I put my clothes in the locker, I do whatever, and then I go about my day. I don't have to worry about anything. I just go about my day. And then the men come in, and guess what? They come in and they don't make any comments either. They don't stare. They may look, but they don't stare. They're not aggressive about it. They put their clothes in the locker, they do what they have to do, and they're on their way. But here's the thing. Men sometimes get erections. And erections can be seen as something scary because women aren't taught that sometimes a man just gets an erection. It may be because of you, it may not be because of you. But that is normal, that is natural. I think that this transgender bathroom backlash is nothing more than Americans being prudes. Americans admitting that they have such a disgusting rape culture, such a fear of sexuality, such a fear of gender expression, which is freedom, that it's coming out in, well, no, you can't use this bathroom. Which is sad, absolutely sad. I'm a dude and I wouldn't be comfortable with a gender neutral bathroom or locker. I have to ask why. Are you afraid you're going to do something, or are you afraid that someone's going to do something to you? Because stuff like that happens in same gender bathrooms. We have a famous example, Stephen King, Carrie. Carrie was in a female locker room. There were no men in there. Absolutely no men in there. In fact, the gym teacher was a female as well. All female. And guess what? Carrie was attacked in there. It's a fictional story, but it is based on the fact that females attack females in other locker rooms in real life. So when you're talking about, I'm afraid of a gender neutral, here's the difference. Here's the difference. Someone might have reported that if it was someone from another gender. Someone might have reported something like that. and said, nah, you know what, it just doesn't sit well with me that you would, throw tampons at Carrie, they would report something like that. But females, because herd mentality, and it's like, well, we're sharing the gender. If one person does it, we all do it. Everybody take a turn, grab a tampon, throw it at Carrie. So yeah, you know what? We need to push down this barrier, this 100%. And I'm saying this as a person who's been traumatized. I'm traumatized to the point that if I see a woman anywhere near me, I cross the street, usually into traffic, because I've been so traumatized. But that's because a female master sergeant of the United States Air Force sexually abused me. So yeah, I have that right to say no. I have that right to say, no, you can't walk beside me. But yeah, if you have to use the bathroom and it's a public place and it's not a single-use bathroom, what am I really going to do about it? Because if I really had to go to the bathroom, oh my God, I drank like a big gulp or something like that, the last thing on my mind is the gender of someone else. And guess what? I'm in, I wash my hands, I'm out. And that's the attitude that you need to have. And the same thing with the locker room. Okay, I'm going to read what you said there. And hello there, MOH, transgender flag there. Hello there, aviation, good to see you. It's a private event. I'm going to go back into what you're saying, because we were like, I'm not going to go poop in front of my mom. Like, what? You did. You did. You absolutely did. You may not have a vivid memory of this, but your mother had to change your diapers. Your father had to change your diapers. Your older cousins and uncles and aunts had to change your diaper. You pooped in front of them. You pissed in front of them. Sometimes you pissed directly on them, which is gross. But guess what? Because they love you, because you're a part of them, they didn't censor you. They didn't say, you know what? That thing is disgusting. I'm a different gender identity. I'm gonna lock up all the diapers and you can just shit and clean it up yourself. They didn't do that. They didn't treat you that way. So why you want to treat a grown adult that way? Why you want to treat a transgender person that way? Because you weren't treated that way, were you? Your parents of whatever gender you are didn't come to you and shame you for using the bathroom in front of them, around them, whatever. You had to share a bathroom with them. If you lived in a house with your family, you shared a bathroom with people of a different gender identity of you, most likely. Somehow you survived. You did. Okay, and as to I'm a dude, I wouldn't be comfortable with a gender neutral bathroom. I read that one. It would just make me uncomfortable. I'm not afraid. Uncomfortable, why? No, we don't. It's weird. Uncomfortable, why? We need to get to a point in society where we can say, a man and a woman or a transgender person and another person can be in the same room. They can piss, they can shit, they can take off their clothes, they can do whatever, and it doesn't affect you. Because if it affects you, I have to ask why. Because if you need to get from A to B, and A to B is you need to brush your teeth, and then B is, hop in the shower, and then C is, change your clothes, and then D is get the fuck out. At what point do you have time to worry about the gender of anybody near you? Put your fucking earbuds in, keep your fucking head down, and go about your fucking day. That's what I say. Okay, I have some new people in here. Hands of Luzerne, bro, food is wasted while people starve. There are bigger issues than this. I'm not eating properly. So I relate to that. I'm reading about how, transgender, people are being arrested for using the bathroom. And I'm saying, I don't have enough food to eat. And I hear that my country is, constantly giving foreign aid to other countries instead of saying, every time that a grocery store has to chuck things because it's like 1 day or 2 days away from expiration date, and they just chuck it in the bin. And I'm like, there's a homeless person you could probably give that to. There's a charitable organization you could give that to so that they could repurpose it and give it to homeless people and explain to them, look, you got to consume it today, but at least you have like a full meal for the day. That makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. There are people starving in America. But this is what America focuses on. This is why I say I don't want to live here. I don't want to live in a country that would rather distract itself instead of dealing with real issues. I started this with talking about how the American education system is just an excuse to shoot your kid in the face, get them pregnant, get them hooked on drugs so that they can just drop out, be a burden, be that criminal that knocks on your car window and says, give me all your money. Why? Because I'm addicted to crack, and my baby is screaming it in the corner because I left her in the alley. This is the America that you live in, but you want to focus on whether or not is it a man, is it a woman, is it something else? Because the smell coming out of that bathroom says that they had the buffet. And that is all you fucking know. And you guess, and you have to guess. Because guess what? Most bathrooms, they have full dividers. And, unless you're going to be staring at the shoes, because if you're staring at the shoes, then guess what? You must be a queen. Because only a queen would be like, I have to judge you underneath the stall by the brand of shoe that you're using. Come on, just grow up, people. Just grow up. Because America is fucking you over on everything else in life. Everything else in life, you're being fucked over by America. But this is the one issue that you say, oh, you know what? It's more important to me. It's more important to me whether or not it's all men or all women next to me when I'm using the bathroom than whether or not there's clean water for you to drink. Are you hearing yourself, America? Are you hearing yourself? Because I have been following this woman on Threads and Instagram, Mary something. I'll post a link or whatever because she's a country music artist and she is very clever. And I support women who use their platform to talk about real issues. And she's talking about how in Eastern Kentucky, the water was befouled, and guess what? The American government didn't do anything. Your elected town officials didn't do anything. People were sick. People got sick, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. And I'm sure Kentucky is not exactly a transgender friendly state. But don't you think you have bigger issues? Don't you think you have more important things to do with your time than worry about whether or not someone is urinating near you that may identify as a different gender than what they were assigned at birth? If your water is poisoning you, focus on that. Like, dude, you got bigger issues. Okay, I'm gonna go back into some of the things. Okay, uncomfortable because it is a private event. It isn't. Okay, it really isn't a private event. Like if you go to the bathroom in public, it's a public event. Like every sound, every smell, everything is shared by everyone. Okay, so don't think of yourself as having a throne to yourself. unless you use a single use bathroom. And most restaurants, most, bars, they have single use bathrooms. Like, if you really want privacy, then choose restaurants, choose bars that have that as the policy. But if you go to a public space where it is multiple stalls, those multiple stalls are going to be used. Okay, they should be arrested. A dude going into a woman's restroom. It's weird. It isn't weird. It's a bodily function. Transgender people aren't going into a bathroom and then throwing a party. They're pissing, shitting, washing their hands, preferably before and after, and then they're going about their day. They don't have time to sit down and have a conversation and validate themselves in your eyes. They're not trying to convert you to being a transgender supporter. They want to use the bathroom and then they want to fucking leave. That's it. And for the transgender people who are staying an extra second to fix their makeup if they use it, or, check their hemlines or whatever they want to do, fix their hair, put some hairspray in it, do a different hairstyle than what you did when you walked in. Guess what? You still have a right to do that. You still have a right to do that. Do that and then get the fuck out and go about your day. If you want to malinger and just, turn it into a shouting match, then yeah, that's a problem. But if you go there with the explicit purpose of, I gotta drop a deuce and then I gotta get the fuck out, no one should stop you. And if they do, then guess what? It just isn't the place for you. And I don't understand why more transgender people aren't coming to this realization that this is your country too. So if you want transgender rights to be human rights, then you go to every single one of the places that you frequent. You go to your major and by the way, hello there, Clint. You go to your major businesses. You go to things like Starbucks and say, are you going to have a problem with me using the bathroom here? Because I'm pretty sure Starbucks has always been like a single use anyway. So they're not exactly a good example, but like Applebee's or like TGIF. Like if you go to a place like that, you go to them and you say, is it going to be a problem? And if they say, yeah, you know what? It is a problem. I'm the manager and I say, no. Then guess what? You don't go there. And then you tell all your friends they don't go there as well. You boycott businesses because they don't understand transgender person in the middle of the street holding a picket sign. They understand there's some fucking empty booths where a bunch of transgender people came to get some wings and pretzels and chips to watch the game because they're avid football fans, American football. But guess what? Because we said, no, you can't use the same, bathroom as, what you decided to choose or you feel is inside or, was always your gender from birth, whatever. Guess what? You don't go to them anymore. You just say, I have gay businesses that have been languishing. There's I live in Los Angeles. There's a gay bar that was in downtown LA. I think it was called Red Bar or something like that. And this was during COVID and monkeypox. But I would glance at that bar, and this is in downtown LA, like a hub. I mean, downtown LA is pretty much Skid Row multiplied. It's the Skid Row city limits. It's not really downtown LA. They have to stop calling it that. But either way, I would glance at this bar, and it was never full. Never. Not once. And this is supposed to be a safe space. Like, if you go outside the premises, you might be called a derogatory term, you might be called a fag, you might be called whatever, you might be attacked. But this is a safe place. It's a piece of property where you could come in, be yourself. But the gays, lesbian, transgender, bisexuals, they wouldn't go to it. So they shut down. They closed, and they just said, you know what? We had a dream of building a community here, having a safe space. So if you were on your way from A to Z and you wanted to use the bathroom, you could use the bathroom, have a beer, and use the bathroom, and then, go about your day. But at least you had a safe space to do that. And I say that as a person who, I live right next to it, and I was having a difficult time, and I could have gone to it. I really could have. But I didn't go. I didn't support them either. And that's a bad attitude to have. It's a really bad attitude to have when you see how against us America is. And, I really do appreciate Clint. I don't know if you're still in here, but thank you for coming by, because you're a good example of someone who just doesn't have hate in your heart and just realizes that you be practical about these things. Okay, I don't feel comfortable being in the restroom with women, and I bet men and women feel the same way. I have to ask why. Because if you are like me, like I have been sexually abused by a female master sergeant because I have a clear point where I was attacked by a woman of a different gender. I do have a problem with it. I have a problem with it. But if you weren't attacked by a woman and you're a man, then guess what? You shouldn't have a problem. You should have the confidence and the security to know that you could use a restroom with a person of a different gender expression, and you could get out. And by the way, you can always call the police. If you feel that you were in any way dealing with someone who was aggressive towards you, or, was making an advance on you that you didn't want, you call the police, you call, the manager of wherever you are, and then you speak on that issue. But if nothing is happening, if you go in, you unzip, you do whatever you have to do, you wash your hands, and then you get the fuck out, who the fuck knows? In fact, are you checking underneath every single stall? Are you checking to make sure that it's completely empty when you go to a place? Because you don't know. Because if you really, really had to go use the restroom, you would use the restroom and then you would leave. If you have extra time to be checking under skulls, if you have extra time to be like knocking on it and saying, are you a man or are you a woman? Are you a man or are you a woman? Go to the next cubicle. Are you a man? Then you have issues. Absolutely have issues. So yeah, you know what? I'm going to keep speaking about this issue. I really am, because I think the fact that we have always divvied it up and said, oh no, well, the boys go this way and the girls go this way, instead of just saying you're human. That's a problem. It's a problem. I mean, you should always have your identity and your freedom to express yourself as you see fit. If you see yourself as a man, congratulations, you win a prize, whatever. But if you can't deal with the fact that there's another gender, if you can't deal with the fact that there's another gender identity in a closed space like a bathroom, then that's an issue. And I say this as a person with PTSD from military sexual trauma. I have issues because I have been attacked. I have issues because I've been attacked. So, yes, I have a right to say, you know what, I feel uncomfortable. You can't sit next to me. I would rather move. I would rather you not talk to me. I have that right to say that. And not to say that you don't have a right if you feel uncomfortable to say something or speak up. But in a situation where it's a bodily function, like if I don't do this, I'm gonna fucking pick a wall and just do it against that. That's barbaric. Grow up and just say, you know what? It's a cubicle. I'm in this cubicle, you're in that cubicle. You don't hear a thing. You don't fucking hear a thing. You don't look under the stool. You don't see, is it a sneaker? Is it a heel? Because guess what? Women wear both, men wear both. Okay? So what is going on in America that we can't come to some sort of consensus and say bodily functions are just bodily functions, and we in America need to rise above that. If it has to be a business by business, city by city, then that's what you do. And you're going to have to, as a transgender person, yeah, I would say check the laws. Because if you're a transgender person, why the fuck are you living in some of these areas? Take your money, take your rent, whatever you're fucking paying, and give it to a city, give it to a town that says you are welcome here. Absolutely say that. Now, that's how I feel about this apartment complex, whatever. Because this apartment complex, you know, the town itself, for the most part, has been very accepting of transgender people. But yet still, I've had 2 hate crimes here. So, you know, it's not really that accepting. I've had more acceptance living in a small town. So for me, it would make more sense for me moving to a small town as a transgender person than for me to live in a big city where I actually get more hate. And I'm going to read some of this. It's an invasion of privacy. It's not an invasion of privacy in a public space. If you want true privacy, use it at home. And I say this to transgender people as well. If you want true privacy, if you want the ability to, you know, live your truth, do it at home. If you can't do it at home, then guess what? There are single use. And if you can't do that, there's public. But if there is public, do what you have to do and get on with your life. This is not a political issue. It's common sense. All right. Because we're different, men and women, we're different, we're good. I don't want to fucking hear we're good at certain things. There are women in the WNBA who will do circles around LeBron. There are women in the WNBA who are just better athletes. And that's as far as I know because someone actually called himself LeBron and I don't know sports. Either way, I gotta go. My head is pounding. God bless. Hope you see how, whatever, dude. It's a fact of life. It's a fact of life. I'm gonna leave you, you know, some latitude to, you know, speak your mind. But look at that. Your head is pounding because you're afraid to use the bathroom next to someone else. That is your own personal internalized issue. Clint, yo, Ian, don't let these guys get to you. They're just being ignorant. They don't understand that an opinion is an opinion. I would love to say it's an opinion is an opinion too, Clint, but it goes beyond that. Because they're arresting transgender people for using the bathroom. On what planet is that an okay thing to do? Because this is America. If you need to use the bathroom, there should always be a safe place for you to use the bathroom throughout the entire city. In fact, they should have an app. They should have an app where it says, you know what, it's a safe space. And if it isn't a safe space, then you know what, you need to move. You need to, and that's how I feel. I feel like gays and lesbians and transgender people have for the longest time said, you know what, I'm gonna stay in this area. This town is where I fuck your town. Fuck your town. Because you're fucking miserable there. Your fucking miserable people are there as well. And you just are wasting your life. Absolutely wasting your life. When you could be surrounded by your own community. Fuck your town. Build a new one. This is what I don't understand about America. If you want to live in a transgender paradise where you can use every single bathroom that you want, you could do what you want, you could live your truth up and down the street, you can have a fucking transgender parade if you wanted every single day, then build your own fucking city. And I say this as a transgender person because guess what? I want to live there. I want to live in a place where I can say, you know what? It's gay and lesbian owned businesses. It's gay and lesbian protected jobs. It's gay and lesbian protected people as they go about their business. If you want to walk down the street as a gay man and swish in some Daisy Dukes and let you have your butt cheek out or just wear leather chaps with your fucking asshole out, guess what? I want a town where you can fucking do that. Fuck your fucking kids. Don't you fucking hide behind your fucking kids. When your fucking kids pop people's heads off in Call of Duty, and then, you know what? They are fine. They're fine. Because most kids can handle that. They can handle that. Let's trust them enough to understand that they can handle someone just using the bathroom next to them. They can handle that. They can recover from that. It's you adults that are more traumatized than your fucking kids. Okay, I'm gonna read what Clint is saying here because I get so emotional. Oh no, I totally understand because we have family restrooms down here where men and women can use the same bathroom and people don't get in trouble for using that one. And they shouldn't. If you're a husband and wife, you should be using the bathroom together in a public space. In a public space, you should be using the bathroom together. Why the fuck would you separate from the person who you married to go to separate bathrooms? That doesn't make sense. Like, use your head, people. Use your head. Family restrooms. And the same thing should apply to transgender people. Like, I hate to say this because I'm a loner. I like being alone. I have PTSD from military sexual trauma, so I don't have any friends. I really don't. But I have to say to transgender people, why are you doing anything alone at this point? If you know that America is such a shitty place that it takes one crazy person to just ruin your day, don't do it by yourself. Don't do anything by yourself. Like, pick a person and say, you know what, I need you to come with me. I need you to come with me to the fucking bathroom. I need you to, do whatever. Because you need someone in your fucking corner. Okay. Uncle Tony, I don't know what your fucking issue is. This is freedom of speech, so I'm gonna enjoy just speaking what I'm speaking on. It's just like you don't need a big giant home. If it's just you and your wife, you only need a larger home when you start having a family. You don't need to start out with Clint, I normally would feel that way, but I'm in a situation where I'm a veteran with PTSD, with military sexual trauma, and every time they deny me my benefits, they love to put in, you're only a single person. You don't have a wife. You don't have any kids. Like, what the fuck do you need more money for? And it's like, I need money to have my own place where I can say, get the fuck out my fucking house. Get the fuck out. You can do that when you have a house. When you own that property, or at least pay a mortgage on it, you have that right to say, get the fuck out. You don't have the right to say that when it's not your property. And that applies to businesses as well. If a business says, you know what, transgender people can use the bathroom, did they pay for a fucking meal? Did they pay for drinks? Did they pay for something? Then they're a customer. And as a customer, they are my honored guest. And as my honored guest, you get to use my bathroom. I understand having enough money to live and be able to take care of yourself, because I don't get enough either for that exact same reason. My thing is a 1-bedroom apartment is good enough to start. It depends on where the apartment is. Clint, I live in a fucking ghetto, which is not LGBT. They have an LGBT center like right around the corner, and it's not enough. It's not enough because this isn't an LGBT neighborhood. It really isn't. I need an LGBT neighborhood where I could be by myself, or at least be around my own people. And I hate to say that because it makes it feel like I'm saying, well, every cisgender heterosexual person is going to be such an asshole about things that I couldn't coexist with them and say, you know what, I want a cup of coffee. Can I get a cup of coffee right next to you without you saying anything? Because I know you want a cup of coffee too. We don't have to talk to each other. We can get in line, we can get a cup of coffee and go our separate ways. And that is how America should work. It should be that we could sit down and have a conversation. We're complete strangers. Just like Clint and I have been on podcasts together, where I've done a podcast on the Clint Gage, channel, because we both agree that it shouldn't matter, what gender you are, what color you are. Do you want to have a conversation? Because I want to talk. Let's have a conversation. Fine, let's do that. But if America isn't at that level, then they should at least be at that level of, it's none of my business. It's none of my business what gender identity you are. It's none of my business, what your political preferences are. If I go into a business like the DMV, or a government building, something like that, and I choose to use a bathroom that I identify with, it shouldn't fucking matter. It really shouldn't fucking matter, because it's not your personal house. It's not yours. And if I go into a business, that business is going to say yes or no to transgender people using the bathroom. Sometimes in certain businesses, they say customers don't get to use the bathroom at all. I remember there was an ice cream shop, and a very distraught mother came in with her kid. Her kid had obviously had an accident and needed to be changed in the bathroom, and the business owner said, no, you don't get to use that. And the mother is just pleading. She's saying, you're the only thing around in the area. I need to, really get this done. Could you let me, just take care of this? And the business owner said no. I believe in a business's right to choose. I believe in freedom in America. I know that I'm talking about transgender rights, and some of the ideas that I have are very radical, absolutely radical. But I believe in choice. I believe in choice. So if a business tells a transgender person, no, you can't use the bathroom here, I'm of the mindset, and this is just me, but I'm of the mindset that, you know what? You made your choice. But guess what? You lost a customer. And because you lost a customer, you may lose other customers. Because now I have every right to tell every single one of the people that I know, speak about it online, that I was denied using a bathroom. I have every right, absolutely every right to do that. And that's what I encourage transgender people to do. You could be upset for the moment. You could, say, well, this is an injustice on a state level. It's like, no, it isn't. Be very specific. If a government building denies you the ability to use the bathroom of the gender which you identify with, then that's the time that you take the fight to the state. But if it's a personal business, I am transgender. I'm two-spirit transgender. So if there's a business that denies you the ability to use the bathroom, I want you to first tell the exact story of whether or not this bathroom was for public use. Because some places have businesses that say, you know what? No one gets to use the bathroom. We're not going back and forth on this issue. No one gets to use it. And that's their choice. Maybe that's their zoning as well, because there are other factors. But if it's a business that says it's a bathroom available to everyone and you were a paying customer at that time, then you know what? Sue. Sue and boycott. Sue and boycott. Get the fucking picket out your fucking hand, put that shit down, and get a fucking lawyer. I believe in a business's right to choose, but you also have the right to seek legal counsel. You also have the right to hop on social media and publicly shame them, which is worse. Clint, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you. Tier, that mindset is gonna make you lonely, bro. Not everybody in America is how you think, bro. Enough people in America have abused me or assaulted me that I have to say I'm done with it. I've been doing a podcast here for a while, and I've just come to the point that I don't want to live in Los Angeles. I think Los Angeles is a bigoted place. It really is. And it's mostly because I live on the wrong side of Los Angeles. But I can't guarantee it'd be any better. It just doesn't feel that way. And I don't care to know. I really don't. As I said, I lived in the South. I lived in the South. I felt safer in the South as a transgender person. I keep talking about it because I have a hard time believing it. But I was a transgender person who wore full makeup, gender neutral, but I will say feminine clothes, and full beard. No one said shit. No one criticized me. No one, called me a fag. I never got called a fag. I never got beat up whatsoever. So, and I lived there for I want to say a year, 2 years, whatever. Didn't have a problem. I come to Los Angeles and that's where I get fucking attacked, which shows that transgender people, lesbian and gays, you have to just wake up. You have to wake up and realize that this country is always going to hate you. And no matter how many times you say, oh, well, I got a victory for this city, I got a victory for this state. It's not national. It's not national. It's not neighborhood by neighborhood. It's none of it. So you need to make your own neighborhoods. You need to be able to say something like West Hollywood has to drive its prices down or offer, I want to say, asylum housing. They have to give asylum to the transgender refugees of America. Because I'm a transgender refugee and I'm going to have to go to another country, most likely Canada, and say, I'm a refugee because there really is no safe, there is no safe place for transgender people in America. I don't believe in God, no. Belinda, I'm pretty sure you had something to say. I always invite discourse. I know that as a transgender person, it can be extremely intimidating, having to talk to people, having to constantly defend our rights. But our rights are your rights too. There are more important issues, and we want to be there to support you after we pee. Clear heads once you get all that water out, okay? This is why I wanna travel, I wanna experience more out of life, because there has to be something more than these attacks on transgender people. I want more out of life, so I'm just not going to get it out of America. So I have to leave America, and this is one of my last podcasts, because I have been asking for donations to keep this channel open so I could stay in Los Angeles and maybe be a voice for change here in LA, but it's just too expensive to live here, and I'm tired of being attacked for being transgender and being so far away from my own community that I have to risk my life to get there. It doesn't make sense for me to do that. I either have to live in my own community, like move to West Hollywood, or move to Palm Springs, or move to somewhere like San Francisco or Seattle, like any of those fucking haven areas. But even there, it's not universal. You may say to yourself, I feel safe, walking in this downtown area. It's like, no, you're not. You're not. Shared space goes both ways. And we're not creating shared space. It's expensive to live anywhere these days. Depends on how you live. I'm gonna put this out into the universe. I'm looking for potentially a roommate. I'm looking for someone, not in this specific place, but a roommate in general, so I can cut down on some bills, and maybe raise some value to my life, because I'm a gamer, I'm a musician, I love to cook, I love to get out there and do fun things, and I want someone who agrees that you can be who you want to be, you can be transgender if you want to be transgender. And I know I'm not exactly the spokesperson for transgender, because I'm not looking to go through surgery. I'm a two-spirit transgender, and a two-spirit transgender is a person who is very traditional, because in the Native American First Nation culture, we didn't have gender assignment surgeons. We just listened to the spirits and said, I feel this way, and I feel that way. And the clothing, the culture, everything was so ambiguous to beginning. Everything that you do is pretty much gender neutral. What game system do you play? I play PC mostly. I don't know what is going on with Microsoft Xbox right now, but they have just figured it out. I don't know what to say. I mean, I used to own a PlayStation 5, but I'm looking back and I have already the games that I always wanted to play, and anything that they come out with exclusive, I haven't been paying attention to. But Xbox has phenomenal games, mostly because they gobbled up all my favorite game developers. PS5 is fun, but it's expensive. We talk about money. We talk about private ownership. Now, let that person say, it's a private issue, it's a private issue. How expensive would your PlayStation 5 be if you just shared it? Kept it in your fucking house, yeah. But other people connected to it. People you trust, obviously. I mean, we keep talking about this whole idea of me, mine. And I say this fully as, a communist, socialist, whatever. Call it what it is. It just makes more sense. It makes more sense that we learn to share things. I know it, like, the idea of having a gender neutral locker room is daunting to people. But then I look at things like Oz. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's on HBO. But Oz was a place where, the correctional officers, they shared a locker room. You know why they had to share a locker room? It wasn't discussed. And yeah, some of it was a bit sexual and titillating. And there were relationships that came out of it. I'm going to shove all that aside. I'm going to shove that aside because these were people who had to come to the conclusion that they were going into a war zone. That every time that they had to exit that locker room, take off the civilian clothes, put on the uniforms, they were going into a war zone where no matter what, that person next to you, you had to defend, you had to protect, because they were the only people that you had. And yeah, Oz is a fucked up show, and it's one of the major reasons why Christopher Maloney is beloved, because wow, that show with Christopher Maloney, he will never fucking live that down. He can't, and he wouldn't. Because he knows that show was pivotal, that show was beautiful in its own way. But back to my point, those correctional officers had to trust each other, had to be able to come to that conclusion that if you step out of this room, these are the only people that you have. And I say this as a person in the military where, my whole sexual abuse happened because this person was taking advantage of the situation, taking advantage of me in order to sexually abuse me. And they were not going about things properly whatsoever. In another situation, it might have been different, but in that situation, it was sexual abuse. So yeah, I do understand how you can be afraid, how a person can have issues with it, but we can't live our lives because of fear, especially when you don't think of living in America as being in a war zone, but let me enlighten you, it certainly is. We need to have more of a community mindset, especially when you go into things like bars and restaurants. Eat together, piss together, shit together, laugh together, sing together, dance together. You need to have a sense of community. Because there are some things going down in this world that we need all the help that we can get. And thank you for the subscription. And yes, you may ask me a question. It's always my right as a human being to say no if I don't feel comfortable answering it. Well, if you still have a question, I'll be more than happy to answer it. If you want to put it in as a comment on this video, you may, of course, because okay, what made trans people and gay people feel like they have been attacked? That's a fair question. I'm probably not the most qualified to answer it, but like I said, I'm part of the community. But when did it start that made them really stand up? It probably started when the first transgender person was arrested for using the bathroom that they chose. And there were probably arrests before. There were probably just little things here and there, but it never made the news. It never made anything. But now transgender people are just being more visible. They were always here. They were always part of society, and they're feeling more bold and they're feeling more confident because there are some accepting people out there and there are some safe spaces. There's just not enough safe spaces and they're not large enough. And you have people in Hollywood and in social media saying, it's okay to be gay, it's okay to be transgender. And it always is. But they don't understand that they're telling this to people who are in small or small-minded towns. Like I live in Los Angeles, and I think that it's an okay place to be transgender, and it isn't. I was very, very lucky that the town knew I was transgender and they let me sing the national anthem because they realized that, this is our heritage. When you say that you're a Latino person, you come from being Native American, and your Native American culture, I'm sorry, I get emotional about this. Your Native American culture was one of inclusion, one where you would turn to these transgender people and say, give us your wisdom, because you're healers, you're health-minded people. Give us your wisdom, guide us, give us spiritual guidance. And now, because of, I guess, their interaction with America and Catholicism and all of the things that was shoved on Latino people, they've just lost their way. And a lot of them are just bigoted against things that they don't understand. They don't understand their roots. All they know is what's happened in the last couple of decades. And that's a little sad. But what makes them feel like they're being attacked? When you're arrested for using the bathroom, that's an attack. When you are dismissed from your job because you maybe mention, oh, and my husband and I were talking about this same exact issue in a classroom, you feel like you're attacked. When you are physically attacked because of a hate crime, then yeah, you definitely feel attacked. And I'm not mad at you, but I think about how often these attacks happen, these little slights, these little erosions of our American civil liberties, which we always have, and how we're not up in arms about it. When you talk about standing up, there's a big difference between picking up a poster and saying, I'm not a boy or I'm not a girl, where do I pee? It's a different thing to say, okay, if your business won't let me pee there because I'm a transgender person, then I'm going to boycott your business. I'm going to tell all my friends to boycott your business. I'm going to post on social media to boycott that business, because that is how you make sure the message is said. Now, there might be someone who sees that poster and they feel inspired. I don't feel inspired. I really don't. If you want to protest as a transgender person, it's your right. Go ahead and protest. I'm saying let's be smart about it. I'm saying, let's do what we have to do to make a real change. And you make a real change by boycotting. You make a real change by saying, my money is my money, and if you disrespect me, I'll take my business elsewhere. Which is precisely why I'm moving to Canada. Thank you, everyone who has joined me. Thank you for all my new subscribers. And I look forward to you on these last few podcasts as I get ready to move to a new country.